love to feel in control. We plan, we calculate, we prepare. We make schedules. We set alarms. We predict what tomorrow will bring. Control gives us safety. It gives us identity. It gives us the comforting illusion that life is ours to command. But what if that feeling, that belief that you are the author of your life, is only half true? What if the moments that shaped you most, the people you met, the paths you took, the things that broke you and healed you, were never really yours to control at all? Think about it. The city you were born in, the family you were given, the language you speak, even the thoughts running through your mind right now. None of those were choices you made. You were born into motion. A current already moving, long before you existed. And yet, we spend our lives pretending we're steering the river when in reality, we're just learning how to float. Maybe that's what control really is. A story we tell ourselves, so the chaos feels a little less infinite. Because to admit that we are not in control is to confront something terrifying, that we are not the center of the story, but part of something much larger, something we can't fully understand. It's easier to believe we are the ones making things happen, that we got here through willpower and intelligence, that every decision was deliberate. But think back. Really think. How many of the most important moments in your life were accidents? How many times did a coincidence change everything? A missed bus? A random encounter? A decision you didn't think twice about that quietly redirected the rest of your existence? And if that's true, if the smallest, most random moments can alter everything, then how much control do we really have? Maybe what we call control is just a fragile dance between choice and chance, a partnership between the predictable and the impossible. You take a step, and life takes one too, sometimes in the same direction, sometimes not. You can guide the rhythm, but never the song. And maybe that's not a tragedy. Maybe that's what makes life bearable. Because if everything were truly under your control, every outcome predictable, every path certain, you'd be trapped in your own perfection, a life without surprise, a story without mystery. We fear losing control, but maybe it's in losing control that we finally begin to live. Maybe real freedom isn't about mastering the world, but surrendering to it, one breath at a time. So the question isn't, how do I control my life? But rather, how do I live beautifully in a world I can never truly control? And that's where our story begins. When we're born, we enter a world already full of rules. Before we can walk, talk, or even think, life starts shaping us. We don't choose our first language, our first name, or the stories our parents whisper before we sleep. Yet those first stories quietly begin to define who we believe we are. Control begins there not as power, but as protection. Our parents control the world around us to keep us safe from it. And for a while, that feels right. We need boundaries to survive. But as we grow, something strange happens. That protection slowly turns into expectation. We start learning that control isn't just about safety anymore. It's about worth. We get praised when we manage, when we perform, when we succeed. We get punished or simply ignored when we don't. And so, somewhere between childhood and adulthood, we begin to believe a dangerous story, that control equals value. That if we can just keep everything under control, our grades, our emotions, our image, our future, we'll be okay. But it never really works, does it? Because life doesn't care about our plans. We schedule, we prepare, we tell ourselves we're ready for anything. Then, one unexpected event, one phone call, one heartbreak, one mistake, and everything changes. Still, we go back to planning because we don't know how else to feel safe. It's almost funny. We keep trying to build order inside a universe made of chaos. And maybe that's not stupidity. Maybe it's instinct, because deep down, we know how fragile we are. And control, even the illusion of it, makes the fragility a little easier to bear. Psychologists talk about something called the locus of control. It's how much you believe your life is in your own hands. An internal locus means you think your actions shape your future. An external one means you believe the world mostly happens to you. Neither is completely right, but the balance matters. Because too much internal control and you start blaming yourself for everything that goes wrong. Too much external control and you stop believing anything you do matters at all. The irony is that both are true. You are responsible for your actions, but you're also part of a system much larger than you. A network of causes and coincidences so vast, you could never fully understand it. You didn't choose the century you were born into. You didn't choose your DNA, your culture, the global economy, or the weather today. And yet, every one of those things shapes who you are and what choices even exist for you. When you look closely, life starts to feel less like a path you're walking and more like a wave you're learning to ride. You can steer, but only a little. You can prepare, but only for what you can see. And beyond that, there's mystery. And maybe that mystery isn't something to fear. Maybe it's what keeps life alive. Because control might give us structure, but unpredictability gives us meaning. If you knew exactly how your life would unfold, if every twist and turn was planned in advance, would you even want to live it? Our need for control, our constant organizing and optimizing, is really just our fear of uncertainty wearing a suit and carrying a to-do list. We tell ourselves we're managing our lives, but what we're really managing is our anxiety. The truth is, you can never fully control life, but you can shape your relationship to it. You can meet uncertainty with curiosity instead of panic. You can learn to see chaos as information, not punishment. You can stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" Maybe that's where control truly begins, not in forcing life to obey you, but in learning how to move with it. Because control, at its core, isn't about domination. It's about relationship, between you and the world, between effort and surrender, between what you want and what is. So before we go any further, take a second. Think about the last time you felt truly in control. Maybe it was during success. Maybe it was during survival. Now ask yourself, was it really control? Or just the moment when chaos happened to agree with your plans? That's where the story of control begins. Not in power, but in fear. Not in choice, but in chance. And maybe, just maybe, learning to live without control is the first real step toward freedom. The human brain is obsessed with patterns. In the stars, in the weather, in people, even in random noise. It's not a choice, it's biology. The brain is a prediction machine. Every second, it's scanning the world, asking, what's next? What's coming? What should I do? It builds tiny models of reality, simulations of what might happen, and then compares them to what actually happens. When the world behaves as expected, the brain rewards you with calmness. When it doesn't, it hits you with confusion, anxiety, even pain. Neuroscientists call this the prediction error. It's that tiny electric shock of surprise when something doesn't go the way you imagined. It's not just emotional, it's physical. Your body literally reacts as if the ground beneath you just moved. Think about it. You text someone, they don't reply. Your heart rate rises. You start writing stories in your head. What did I do wrong? Are they mad at me? Did something happen? That's not you being irrational. That's your brain trying to close the gap between expectation and reality. And when it can't, you feel panic. We like to think anxiety is something wrong with us, something broken. But in many ways, it's proof that your brain is doing its job. It's detecting unpredictability. It's alerting you to possible danger even when the danger isn't real anymore, because modern life confuses the brain. Our ancestors worried about predators and hunger. We worry about emails and rejection. But to the brain, uncertainty feels the same, whether it's a tiger in the bushes or a text that never came. The brain hates uncertainty. It wants closure, order, symmetry. That's why we finish sentences in our heads when someone pauses too long. It's why cliffhangers make us crazy. It's why we replay conversations at 2 a.m., trying to predict how we should have acted differently. The need for control is really the need for prediction. Control tells the brain, you're safe, the world is stable, you know what's next. Even if that's not true, and that illusion, that fragile feeling of knowing, is what keeps us sane. At least, most of the time. But there's a cost. When life becomes unpredictable, when plans collapse, when people change, when the world stops making sense, our brains panic. Not because the event itself is unbearable, but because it breaks the pattern, the model fails, and the mind doesn't like when its models fail, so it fights back. It tries to rebuild order, to explain, to rationalize, to control. We call it overthinking, but it's really just the brain, scrambling to find the pattern again. Sometimes it helps. Other times it traps us. Because when we can't find certainty, we invent it. We create stories, superstitions, beliefs. We'd rather believe something even if it's wrong than accept we simply don't know. That's the paradox of human intelligence. The smarter we are, the better we are at lying to ourselves. We turn coincidences into destiny. We turn randomness into meaning. We connect dots that were never connected. And sometimes, that illusion of meaning gives us comfort. Other times, it drives us mad. Our brains were never designed for true uncertainty. They were designed for survival, not truth. So they will trade truth for comfort, again and again. But there's a secret buried in that discomfort, a gift, if we're willing to look closely. Because the same brain that fears unpredictability is also wired to learn from it. Every surprise, every mistake, every shock forces the brain to rewire itself, to grow, to adapt. That's how evolution works, and that's how consciousness evolves, through chaos. You've probably heard the phrase, get out of your comfort zone. It's become a cliche, but it's also neuroscience. Because every time you face uncertainty and stay with it, you train your mind to tolerate the unknown. You expand the borders of what feels safe. You teach your brain that not knowing is not the same as dying. And that's liberation, because the more you accept uncertainty, the less power it has over you, the less control you need to feel in control. Maybe the goal isn't to make life predictable, but to become more comfortable with the unpredictable. Maybe freedom isn't the absence of chaos, but the ability to move through it without losing your center. So the next time you feel anxious about what's coming, remember, your brain is just trying to protect you. It's writing stories because it hates silence. It's reaching for control because it's afraid to admit it doesn't know. But not knowing isn't failure. It's the start of wisdom. Because everything new, everything beautiful, everything alive begins in uncertainty. We love control. We organize, we plan, we predict. We measure our lives in to-do lists, calendars, alarms, and spreadsheets. And for a while, it works. Control feels safe. It feels like power. It feels like life is ours to hold in our hands. But sometimes, control isn't freedom. Sometimes, it's a cage. Think about it. When you try to control everything, your work, your health, your relationships, your image, you stop noticing what's happening in front of you. You stop seeing life as it is. Control starts small, like a safety net. Then it grows, silent, invisible, until it shapes every decision, every thought, every breath. And suddenly, freedom feels dangerous. Spontaneity feels reckless. Uncertainty feels unbearable. We become trapped in routines, habits, and expectations, not because they are wrong, but because we confuse them with safety. We trade the unknown for the predictable and call it peace. And yet, the paradox is cruel. The more control we cling to, the more fragile it becomes, because life is never fully predictable. It resists containment. It pushes back. The moment we believe we can control everything, we set ourselves up for failure. A missed train, a lost opportunity, a sudden betrayal, and then we panic. Not because the world is cruel, but because we trusted an illusion. Psychologists call this the control trap. It's the cycle of trying to manage life, failing, blaming ourselves, and trying again, harder, faster, more desperately. The control trap is everywhere. In our jobs, in our relationships, in our obsession with perfection. We think if we just try hard enough, if we just plan more carefully, if we just know more, we can stop chaos from touching us. But chaos is inevitable, and the harder we fight it, the more exhausted we become. We forget that control was never meant to be absolute. It was a tool, not a destiny. And when we turn a tool into a master, we enslave ourselves. Control convinces us that life is a puzzle to solve, rather than a river to navigate. It makes us believe that certainty is possible, and failure is unacceptable. It makes us fear unpredictability so much that we avoid it at all costs, and that fear is what cages us. It stops us from taking risks, from speaking our truth, from stepping into the unknown. We might be alive, but we are not fully living. The control trap also lives in our minds. We replay conversations endlessly. We imagine every possible outcome. We worry about mistakes that haven't happened yet. We blame ourselves for events beyond our influence. And all of this mental energy spent on what we cannot truly control robs us of presence. It robs us of wonder. It robs us of joy. But there is a way out. It begins with noticing. Noticing when control becomes anxiety, when order becomes rigidity, when caution becomes imprisonment. Because the first step toward freedom is understanding that control is not the enemy. Excessive control is. The illusion that you must control everything, that life must obey you, that you alone are responsible for every outcome that is the cage. And once you see it, once you acknowledge it, you can begin to loosen the bars. You can start to accept what you cannot change. You can start to surrender, not in defeat, but in wisdom. There is a strange liberation in realizing you don't have to carry the weight of the world. You don't have to know every answer. You don't have to plan for every possible future. Control is useful. Control is necessary. But it is not the point of life. Life is not about keeping everything in your hands. It is about learning to move with it, to dance with the unpredictability, to feel the tension and the release. The cage is invisible, and yet, so many of us spend decades locked inside it, waiting for certainty, waiting for a perfect life, waiting for control. And the truth is, it will never come, because freedom is not found in controlling life. It is found in learning to live with it, not despite uncertainty, but because of it. So ask yourself, are you steering your life, or are you clinging to the illusion that you are? Are you living, or are you surviving behind invisible bars? The first step out of the cage is simply noticing it exists, and the next is learning how to walk through the door. There will come a moment in your life, a moment when everything you thought you controlled slips through your fingers. It might be sudden, a phone call in the middle of the night, a word you weren't prepared for, a betrayal, a diagnosis, or simply a moment so ordinary you never realized it could change everything. And suddenly, your world tilts. The plans, the schedules, the carefully built structure of your life, they all begin to crumble. This is the moment that reveals the truth. You were never truly in control. The people you relied on may fail you. The systems you trusted may collapse. The future you imagined may vanish. And in that moment, panic rises, not just in your mind, but in your body. Your heart races, your chest tightens, your brain frantically searches for a pattern, anything, to make sense of what just happened. And there is none, because life is not a puzzle. It is not a game with predictable rules. It is chaos. Beautiful, terrifying, unpredictable chaos. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid this moment. We create insurance, routines, rituals, and safety nets. We gather information, we plan, we calculate, we hope. But all of it is temporary. All of it is fragile. And when the collapse comes, it comes anyway. Some people break. They try to rebuild control as if it were a shield. They blame themselves, blame others, blame the universe. And yet, the truth remains: control was never theirs to hold. But there is another way, because collapse also offers clarity. In the ruins of certainty, you see life as it truly is: raw, real, unpredictable. You realize that the moments you feared the most are often the ones that teach you the most. The heartbreak, the failure, the accident, the mistake, they are all teachers, though cruel ones. And strangely, surrendering to collapse can be more freeing than maintaining control ever was. When you stop struggling to hold everything together, you see that life still moves. You see that even when plans fail, the world continues. The river flows, the sun rises, people breathe. And somehow, so do you. In psychology, this is sometimes called radical acceptance. It's the ability to look at the chaos, to meet it fully, without trying to fix it, change it, or control it. And in that acceptance lies peace. The moment everything collapses is also the moment your illusions die. But death, even metaphorical death, can be beautiful. Because once the illusions are gone, you are free to see what's left. And what's left is life. Messy, unpredictable, uncontrollable life. And that life, the one that resists your grasp, is also the one that can surprise you, that can teach you, that can transform you. Think about it. How many of your most profound experiences came not from careful planning, but from accident, a chance encounter, a conversation you almost skipped, a decision you didn't think would matter? Life often moves in ways you cannot predict. And yet, it moves. The paradox is cruel. The very thing that terrifies you, the collapse of control, is the same thing that allows growth. The same thing that allows creation. The same thing that allows joy. When everything collapses, you are forced to confront the one truth that your mind has always avoided. You are not the master of the universe. You are not the author of every story. You are not the keeper of certainty. And yet, you are alive. You are here. You are breathing. You are thinking. You are capable of responding. And that is enough. It is enough to begin again. It is enough to see beauty where chaos lives. It is enough to let go of control and move with life instead of against it. The collapse is not the end. It is the doorway. The moment you feared the most can become the moment you finally wake up, because in the ruins of your illusions, you find clarity, and in clarity, you find freedom. So when your world begins to fall apart, remember this: the collapse is not a punishment. It is not failure. It is a teacher, a guide, a reminder that life is alive, and you are part of it even when you cannot hold it in your hands. Chaos, disorder, uncertainty. We spend our lives fearing it, running from it, trying to stamp it out. We want life to be neat, predictable, safe. We want the rules to be clear, the paths to be straight, the outcomes guaranteed. But what if chaos is not the enemy? What if chaos is the teacher? Think about nature. Storms sweep through forests. Fire clears old growth. Rivers change course. The world reshapes itself in ways we cannot predict. And yet, life continues. Not despite the chaos, but because of it. Humans are no different. The chaos we fear, the unexpected heartbreaks, the failures, the accidents, they are not punishments. They are information. They are feedback from the world. A signal that something is shifting, that growth is possible, that change is necessary. In psychology, there's a concept called post-traumatic growth. It's the idea that people who endure trauma can emerge stronger, wiser, more resilient. It doesn't mean trauma is good. It doesn't mean the suffering is justified. It simply means that life, when it disrupts us, offers lessons we cannot learn any other way. Chaos forces attention. It breaks patterns. It interrupts routines. And in that interruption, we are awake, truly awake. Because comfort and predictability are seductive. They lull us into autopilot. We move through life like machines, rarely questioning, rarely feeling, rarely learning. But chaos refuses to let us sleep. It insists that we notice, that we confront ourselves, that we ask the hard questions. Who am I? What do I want? What is real? And when we answer even imperfectly, we grow. The Stoics understood this. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not. The things not up to us, the unpredictability, the accidents, the randomness, are not punishments. They are the raw material of life, and the things that are up to us, our choices, our responses, our attention, are where freedom lives." Chaos and choice exist together. One without the other is incomplete. You cannot choose in a world that never surprises you, and chaos without choice is suffering. The paradox is beautiful. The universe refuses to be tamed, and yet it invites you to dance, to respond, to engage. The moments of greatest growth, the moments that shape our character, are rarely the ones we planned. They are the accidents, the disruptions, the moments that demanded we pay attention. And yet, we resist. We fight chaos. We make plans, schedules, checklists, alarms. We try to squeeze the unpredictable into boxes, but the more we resist, the more it shapes us. The more we control, the more fragile our control becomes. The more we fear, the less we experience. To learn from chaos, you don't have to master it. You don't have to predict it, understand it, or control it. You only need to meet it with presence, to notice it, to feel it, to let it teach you, without letting it break you. This is the essence of wisdom. To see chaos, and instead of recoiling, to respond. Because every collapse, every shock, every random turn of events, they are all teachers. Some are gentle, some are harsh, some teach through silence, some through violence, but all of them are lessons. And the lesson is simple. You cannot control life, but you can control how you move through it. You can choose your attention. You can choose your response. You can choose presence, curiosity, and courage. Chaos becomes a teacher only when you stop resisting it, when you stop blaming, when you stop trying to force the world to obey your plans. Then, and only then, you begin to learn what it really means to live. So the next time life surprises you, the next time something falls apart, don't fight it, don't curse it, don't cling to illusions of control. Instead, listen, watch, learn. Because in the heart of chaos, beyond fear and resistance, lies the most profound education you will ever receive, the education of life itself. And when you finally understand that, you begin to move differently. You breathe differently. You live differently. Not perfectly, not safely, but fully. Control is not just a personal obsession. It is a social one. We live in a world built on the promise of control. Every product, every app, every algorithm tells us you can predict, you can optimize, you can manage. Control your money, control your health, control your time, control your image, control your relationships. And we believe it. We chase it, measure it, compare it. We quantify every aspect of our lives, thinking the numbers give us certainty. But what is really happening? The more we try to control externally, the more we hand our lives over to invisible forces. Algorithms shape what we see. Social norms dictate what we say. Cultural expectations tell us who we should be. We chase the illusion of mastery while surrendering to pressures we barely notice. Even our social networks, likes, shares, comments, are subtle forms of control. We learn to craft our image, curate our presence, seek approval. We think we are in charge of perception. But perception is controlled by others, by the structure of the platforms, by the systems we participate in. And so, we live in a paradox. We strive for control, and yet we are controlled. It is invisible, almost seductive, a social cage disguised as freedom. This is why many people feel anxious, even when everything seems fine, because the illusion of control is never enough. It cannot satisfy the mind that seeks certainty, the heart that craves stability, the ego that fears irrelevance. We compare ourselves to others. We measure our success by likes, by followers, by achievements. We obsess over metrics we do not fully understand, chasing validation that is always just out of reach. And every time we fail, or even suspect failure, we feel panic, guilt, shame. Not because we truly lost control, but because we were never in control to begin with. The social illusion of control is powerful because it is invisible, normalized, and reinforced constantly. It's taught at home, at school, at work, online. We are trained to believe that mastery equals worth, that mistakes are unacceptable, that unpredictability is failure, but it is all an illusion. The truth is that life is messy, society is messy. Relationships, careers, reputation, all of it is inherently unpredictable. And yet, here we are, spending decades of our lives trying to manage everything anyway. What if the answer is not more control, but less? What if the real freedom comes from noticing the patterns, understanding the structures, and choosing how to move within them without clinging to the idea that you are the master of all? Control is seductive because it gives comfort. It makes life feel predictable. It gives us a sense of meaning. But true meaning, real freedom, does not come from manipulating the world to fit your plans. It comes from accepting the world as it is and learning to navigate it with awareness, not domination. The challenge is profound: to recognize the invisible forces shaping you, to confront the illusions you carry, and to live fully despite them. And this is where courage lives, not in mastery, not in perfection, not in certainty, but in presence, in awareness, in choosing to engage with life as it is, messy and unpredictable, rather than as you wish it were. The social illusion of control is not a failure of intelligence or effort. It is the way humans are wired. It is the way societies function. It is the shadow side of our need for order. And once you see it clearly, you are free to step outside it, to stop measuring your worth by metrics imposed by others, to stop fearing unpredictability as if it were punishment, to stop surrendering your attention and your energy to illusions of control you never truly had. And in that freedom, you begin to find something else entirely: clarity, presence, and a connection to life that no system, algorithm, or expectation can ever take from you. Because life chaotic, messy, uncontrollable is not something to master. It is something to witness, to participate in, and ultimately to embrace. We often think control is about ourselves, our schedules, our plans, our minds. But control doesn't stop there. It reaches outward, into the people around us, into relationships, into love. We try to control others, not always consciously, not always cruelly, but subtly, persistently. We want people to behave a certain way, to respond as we expect, to validate us, support us, love us, approve of us. It starts small. A word here, a subtle expectation there, a silent judgment, and slowly, it grows. We begin to believe we should be able to shape others, to steer them like a ship, so that our lives feel safe, predictable, right. But people are not predictable. They are not objects. They are not extensions of our plans or desires, and yet we try, we manipulate, persuade, argue, withdraw, and pressure. We do it in families, in friendships, in romantic relationships, in workplaces. We convince ourselves it is love, care, responsibility, or wisdom, but underneath it, often, is fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of chaos, fear that if others don't behave as we expect, the world, or at least our world, will fall apart. And here lies a paradox. The more we try to control others, the less connection we feel. The more we impose our will, the more distance grows. The more we cling to the illusion of certainty, the more fragile the relationship becomes. Psychologists call this reactance. It's the instinctive pushback people feel when they sense their freedom is threatened. You try to control, and they resist. Not because they are mean or disobedient, but because control is experienced as a threat. The irony is painful. We try to secure love, approval, or safety, but the very attempt to control others often destroys the connection we crave. The same pattern shows up in romantic relationships. We demand loyalty, attention, and validation. We check phones, interpret words, track behavior. We believe that if we can just manage every detail, love will be safe. But love cannot be controlled. It cannot be forced or manufactured. It only exists in freedom. The freedom of choice, the freedom to move toward or away, the freedom to be real. And yet, we fear that freedom, because freedom brings uncertainty. Uncertainty brings vulnerability, and vulnerability, for the mind seeking control, is terrifying. So we create rules, structures, expectations. We plan, we predict, we manipulate. We try to eliminate unpredictability from the lives of those we care about. And sometimes it works temporarily, a compromise, a moment of calm. But calm achieved through control is fragile and fleeting. It is not trust, it is not intimacy, it is not connection. True connection, the kind that lasts, that feels real, that nurtures, requires a different mindset. It requires acceptance. Acceptance that others are unpredictable. Acceptance that they will make mistakes. Acceptance that their choices may not align with ours. And acceptance does not mean passivity. It does not mean tolerating abuse, neglect, or harm. It means recognizing the boundary between influence and control, between guidance and domination. It means holding people close without holding them hostage. It means loving without demanding obedience. It means participating in life together, without the illusion that you can fully steer the other. The greatest relationships thrive not because we control, but because we allow space, because we allow mystery, because we allow imperfection. And here is the final irony. Letting go of control over others does not weaken the bond. It strengthens it, because trust, respect, and freedom are the foundation of real connection. We fear chaos in relationships more than anywhere else. But if we surrender the need to control, we experience something rare: presence, acceptance, love untainted by fear. Pause 5 seconds. So next time you feel the urge to manipulate, persuade, or micromanage someone you care about, pause, breathe, notice the fear beneath the impulse, and ask yourself, do I want control or connection? Because the choice is always yours. The freedom to let go, the courage to accept, the wisdom to see that control over others is never true mastery, but surrender can be. We have spent our lives chasing control, planning, predicting, managing, shaping, believing that if we hold tightly enough, life will bend to our will. We learn to control ourselves. We learn to control others. We built routines, systems, rules. We sought certainty in work, in love, in society. We sought safety in order, predictability, and knowledge. And yet, every one of us has experienced it. The moment when control slips away. The moment when the world refuses to obey our plans. The moment when collapse, chaos, or randomness enters. It is terrifying. It is humbling. It is inevitable. But here's the paradox. That very chaos, that very uncertainty, is where freedom begins. Because when control collapses, when expectations shatter, when plans fail, we are left with the raw, unfiltered experience of life itself. And life, the real, messy, unpredictable, uncontrollable life, is alive in ways that safety and certainty never are. We have seen it already. Our brains crave predictability, but they grow through surprise. Our need for control can become a cage, but letting go allows expansion. Chaos is terrifying, but it is also a teacher. Society's illusions manipulate us, but awareness frees us. Relationships crumble under control, but thrive under acceptance. And all of this leads to one truth: control was never the goal. Control was never the point. Control is not mastery. Control is not freedom. Freedom comes when we embrace uncertainty, not passively, not in resignation, but with presence, with curiosity, with courage. To live freely is not to predict every outcome. It is not to manipulate the world into obedience. It is to move through life with awareness, to see what is happening, and to respond with clarity, intention, and compassion. The philosopher Alan Watts said, "You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at itself." Imagine that. You are not separate from life. You are part of its flow, its chaos, its unpredictability. And your task is not to control it, but to witness it, to participate, to dance, because the beauty of life is in its uncertainty. The growth, the love, the learning, the moments that take your breath away, they all come from unpredictability. And here is the gift. The more we accept what we cannot control, the more we see the life that surrounds us. The more we let go of the illusion that we are masters, the more we realize we are participants. We begin to notice details we overlooked. The patterns we thought were boring become complex. The people around us become vivid. Even pain becomes meaningful, not as punishment, but as insight. And slowly, quietly, we learn to move with life, rather than against it. We stop trying to force certainty. We stop fearing the unknown. We stop believing that our value depends on our ability to predict. We begin to live. And living fully does not mean control disappears. Control is still useful. Planning is still wise. Prediction is still a tool, but it no longer dominates. It no longer terrifies. It no longer cages us. We have moved from obsession to balance, from fear to curiosity, from illusion to clarity. And in this space, we discover a profound truth. The moments we cannot control, the accidents, the disruptions, the surprises, are not threats, they are gifts. They are the raw material of growth, learning, connection, and freedom. To live fully is to dance with uncertainty, to step into the unknown with open eyes, to embrace chaos rather than run from it. And in doing so, we find a freedom deeper than control could ever offer. A freedom that is quiet, steady, and enduring. A freedom that is alive. So take a moment. Think of the areas of your life where you cling too tightly, where you demand order, where you fear unpredictability. Ask yourself, what would happen if I let go, even slightly? What would life feel like if I stopped trying to control it? The answer may be surprising. It may be uncomfortable. It may be beautiful. Because freedom is not found in mastery. It is found in acceptance. It is found in presence. It is found in the courage to live with life exactly as it is, unpredictable, messy, uncontrollable, and infinitely alive. And when you finally understand that, when you finally feel it in your body, in your mind, in your relationships, in your heart, you are free, truly free, free from illusion, free from fear, free to participate in the world rather than trying to hold it in your hands. And that freedom, fragile, fleeting, imperfect, is more beautiful than anything control could ever give. Voiceover. There is a kind of weight we all carry through life, not a physical weight, but one made of expectations, assumptions, and silent rules we agreed to long before we understood them. We inherit ideas about who we should be, how life should unfold, what success means, what is considered normal, reasonable, or responsible. Most of these ideas didn't begin with us. They were passed on by family, Culture, society, teachers, even friends like invisible luggage handed to us at birth. And without noticing, we learn to hold it tightly, as if dropping it would make us incomplete or somehow wrong. We learn early. Don't question too much. Don't wander off the path. Don't be different in ways that make others uncomfortable. So we adapt. We shape ourselves to fit the expectations around us, believing that acceptance is earned by playing the role we were given. But here is a quiet truth. Many people go through life performing a version of themselves that the world taught them to be, not the one they truly are. Think about it for a moment. How many of your decisions were truly yours? Not influenced, not expected, not encouraged or discouraged by someone else, but purely born from your own inner voice. For most of us, that number is smaller than we would like to admit. Perhaps you chose a certain career because it sounded respectable. Perhaps you stayed in a relationship because it felt safe, not meaningful. Perhaps you suppressed a passion because the world called it unrealistic, and you feared being judged for trying. Slowly, without realizing it, life becomes a collection of choices made to avoid letting others down, instead of choices that lift you up. We follow a script we never had the chance to write. A script that says, go to school, choose one path, don't fall behind, be productive, be practical, don't change your mind. It's a quiet pressure not loud enough to rebel against, but constant enough to shape your days, your habits, and eventually, your identity. And in this quiet pressure, something subtle happens. We trade possibility for predictability, curiosity for certainty, and authenticity for approval. But life was never meant to be a straight line. It was meant to be explored, questioned, felt, and lived, not just completed. The heaviness you sometimes feel, that sense of being stuck, disconnected, or tired of your own life, doesn't always come from lack of progress. Often, it comes from carrying beliefs that no longer belong to you, because not all weight you carry is yours. Some of it belongs to the fears of those who raised you. Some of it belongs to a culture that values fitting in over feeling whole. Some of it belongs to an old version of you, a younger self who didn't yet know who you could become. Letting go is not about rejecting your past. It's about gently releasing the parts of it that no longer help you grow. Letting go isn't about failure or giving up. It's about returning to yourself. Because you cannot step into a life that feels true while holding on to expectations built for a version of you that no longer exists. So the question is not, am I strong enough to carry all this? Strength was never the issue. You've proven that already by surviving under its weight. The real question, the one that matters now, is softer, but far more honest. Do I still want to carry this? And if the answer is no, then perhaps it's time to put some of it down. Not with force, but with kindness. Because the moment you begin releasing what was never truly yours, space appears for curiosity, for possibility, and for the person you are quietly becoming. Voiceover. If you were to remove all the noise in your life, the expectations, the roles, the labels, the comparisons, who would remain? It's a simple question, but not an easy one. From the moment we are old enough to understand words, the world begins to tell us who we are. You're smart. You're shy. You're difficult. You're talented. You're the flux. Responsible one. You're the one who will make us proud. Sometimes these words feel encouraging, like a warm light guiding us forward. Sometimes they feel heavy, like a weight we never asked to carry. Yet either way, they become part of the story. We tell ourselves a story we rarely pause to question. We often forget that these labels were opinions, not truths. Reflections of moments, not the full picture of who we are. But what if the stories you repeat in your head were only chapters, not definitions? What if the person you believe yourself to be is just a collection of voices you learn to trust more than your own? We rarely stop to ask, what do I think of myself? What do I value when no one is here to approve or judge it? What feels true to me beneath all the expectations? Because the inner space where those answers live is often crowded with noise, The noise of advice, opinions, traditions, fears, and comparisons. Noise that tells us what success should look like, what happiness should feel like, how quickly we should grow, and how much we should achieve by a certain age. Noise that turns life into a silent competition, as if living slower means living wrong, as if choosing differently means failing. But here is something easily overlooked. Silence is not empty. It is full of answers. When the noise fades, even for a moment, what remains is the part of you that existed before the world told you who to be. The quiet, intuitive, observant self. The self that once wandered freely as a child, without fear of judgment. The self that chose out of curiosity, not approval. The self that wasn't trying to be someone, only to experience being alive. Some people call it the true self, others call it the inner voice, some call it intuition. But whatever the name, it has been with you all along, patient, gentle, waiting to be heard again. Yet silence can feel uncomfortable at first, not because silence is threatening, but because it leaves us alone with ourselves, without distractions, without roles, without performances. And meeting yourself without all of that can feel like meeting a stranger you forgot you once knew. In that stillness, emotions may rise, old memories, unasked questions, dreams you left behind. Not to overwhelm you, but to remind you of the parts of you that have been waiting to be acknowledged. So ask yourself softly, who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when no one needs anything from you? Who are you when you stop trying to meet expectations? These are not questions to be answered fast. They are doorways slow, meaningful invitations into a deeper kind of living. Because identity is not something you decide once and carry for life. It evolves, it breathes, it grows as you do. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to outgrow versions of yourself that were built for survival, not for joy. And here is the quiet beauty of it all. You don't need to escape your life to find yourself again. You don't need to abandon everything or start over from zero. You only need a few honest moments. Moments of stillness, moments of listening, moments where you choose to hear your own voice above the noise. Because the journey isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering the person you were before the world became loud, the one who was already enough. Voiceover. Everything in life is temporary. Even the mountains, the rivers, the sky, even the thoughts that feel endless, the feelings that feel permanent, the routines that feel fixed. And yet, we resist this truth. We cling to stability, predictability, permanence, as if holding on tightly could make the world stop moving, but nothing stops. Time flows, circumstances shift, people change, and the only constant is the rhythm of impermanence. Sometimes, impermanence is gentle, a quiet evening fading into night, a friendship that slowly grows deeper, a habit that naturally evolves. Sometimes, impermanence is harsh, a job lost, a relationship ended, a dream that crumbles despite all your effort. And most of the time, it is somewhere in between, a mixture of small shifts, surprises, and unexpected turns that shape who we become without asking for permission. Life asks nothing of us except presence. Presence in this moment, here, now. Because the more we resist impermanence, the more we suffer. The more we try to control what cannot be controlled, the more fragile our sense of self becomes. The wise understand this truth intuitively. To hold too tightly is to break. To cling too long is to lose. To fear the inevitable is to miss life entirely. Impermanence invites you to flow, to let go, to witness without grasping, to participate without needing to own or control. When you learn to embrace it, you discover something extraordinary. Freedom within change, peace within uncertainty, joy within the unplanned. Think about it. If you accept that nothing stays the same, you no longer fear loss because you understand it is a natural part of life. You no longer feel pressured to grasp or dominate. because you see that life itself is a rhythm, and your role is to move with it, not against it. Impermanence is not cruel. It is life's gentle, persistent teacher, reminding us that every moment matters and that every ending is also a beginning. And perhaps the most profound lesson of all, when you embrace impermanence, you discover the preciousness of your own time. You begin to notice the fleeting beauty in small things. A smile, a conversation, a sunset, a quiet breath. Because each of these moments will not last forever. And yet, they are enough. They are more than enough. They are the very fabric of life. And when you live with this awareness, not anxiously, not desperately, but gently, with quiet attention, you become capable of experiencing life more fully, loving more deeply, and living more freely. Impermanence is not something to be feared. It is something to be honored. It is the secret teacher of presence, the subtle guide to freedom, the doorway to understanding that life is meant to be experienced, not held onto. So the next time something changes, or disappears, or drifts away, remember this: it is not the loss that defines you. It is your ability to move, to accept, and to continue. And in that movement, you discover the true rhythm of life itself. Voiceover. And now, after all the reflections, all the quiet questions, all the layers we've explored together, we arrive at a choice that is simple, but not always easy. You can continue to live under the weight of expectation, carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. You can continue to let the noise of the world dictate your decisions, your feelings, your very sense of self. You can continue to try to control what cannot be controlled, to shape others, to predict life, to hold tightly to illusions that keep you comfortable, but limit the fullness of your experience. Or you can choose something different. You can choose to step gently into awareness, to notice when the weight is not yours, to recognize the voices that are not your own, to listen to the quiet self beneath the noise, the self that remembers curiosity, freedom, and possibility. You can choose to embrace impermanence, to understand that change is natural, inevitable, and even necessary, to allow yourself to flow with life, not as a victim of circumstance, but as an active participant, a conscious witness of your own journey. You can choose to release control over things and people that were never yours to command. You can choose to trust the rhythm of life and to participate without needing to dominate, to engage deeply, but with lightness, to love, but without fear of losing. And most importantly, you can choose to reclaim your attention, to invest it in what truly matters, to listen to the small, quiet voice inside that knows what feels real, to live intentionally, not reactively, to see the world not as something to conquer, but as a space to explore, to feel, to understand, and to appreciate. The choice is yours. It is a lifelong choice, not a single action, not a perfect plan, not a sudden transformation, but a series of small, conscious moments, a series of yes and no, a series of decisions that gradually reshape your relationship with yourself, with others, and with life itself. Because transformation does not happen in a day. It happens in the quiet decisions, in the pauses before you react, in the choices to let go, in the courage to face uncertainty with presence rather than resistance, and it will not be without discomfort. Releasing old weights, questioning old stories, seeing yourself clearly without the masks. These are gentle, subtle acts of courage, but they are courage nonetheless. Imagine, just for a moment, what it would feel like to live without the unnecessary weight. To wake each morning, not to the noise, but to a life of presence. To make decisions not out of fear, but out of understanding. To see impermanence not as loss, but as a teacher guiding you toward appreciation, compassion, and freedom. You can live like this. You can choose this path. It does not require perfection, nor certainty, nor a complete undoing of your past. It only requires the intention to notice, to reflect, and to act consciously. And here is the most powerful truth. Every moment is an opportunity. Every moment is a doorway into transformation. The simplest breath, the softest thought, the quietest awareness of what is can become the foundation of change. So I ask you not as a demand, but as a gentle invitation. What small choice can you make today to release what no longer serves you? What small act of presence, of letting go, of awareness, can you offer to yourself in this moment? Because the real transformation is not about who you will become. It is about remembering who you already are, a being capable of presence, clarity, freedom, and love. A being capable of choosing differently. A being capable of living fully, even in the uncertainty, even in impermanence, even with the weight of the world pressing softly on your shoulders. And if you take even one step toward that today, if you begin with one conscious decision, one mindful pause, one act of gentle letting go, then something profound begins. A chain reaction within your own life, softly reshaping thoughts, actions, and relationships, leading you toward a life of quiet freedom, a life of intentional presence, a life you can call truly yours. The path is simple in idea, but profound in effect. It asks only for attention, reflection, and small, steady action. It asks only that you trust yourself enough to take the first step. And here is the final truth. You already have everything you need. You already carry the awareness. You already carry the possibility. All that remains is the choice and the courage to act upon it. So, today, choose. Choose to notice. Choose to release. Choose to live with presence. Choose to embrace change. Choose to step into the life that has always been waiting for you. A life of freedom, clarity, and intention. It begins here. It begins now.